this?
Yes, welcome guys!
At ngayon, Friday na naman! Hi, Catholics! Ano ba inaabangan natin tuwing YGIG? Tuwing Friday, 5 p.m. YGIG na naman!
Yes, at syempre, nice natin i-welcome ang bawat isa ngayon. Kung nakikita niyo ba sa comment section?
Yes. Ang ating mga Catholics ay grabe nag-comment na sila sa ating section. So for us to know if you are a first time
Yes, at dahil tignan natin sa comment section, talagang cute nila kay Jollibee. Diba?
Oo nga,
Nice
cute
natin
na cute sila
na
kay Javi.
ipag-mention sa kanila ngayon ang mga friends nila para makasama natin din ngayon sa ating YGIG.
Yes.
Mention naman po.
Shout out naman kayo dyan, Catalyst, ng inyong mga ka-COD, ng inyong mga kaibigan, at inyong mga kapitbahay at kung sino man gusto yung i-mention sa ating comment section. Ayan, for us to know kung ikaw ay first-time viewer, you can type, "What's up, guys?" For us to know kung
what's up, guys?
Viewer.
Kung
Yan.
first time ka, what's up na lang. Yan.
Yes.
Para ma-notice ka namin, guys. Yan. Hello sa inyo lahat. Yan.
Yes,
Ano,
guys.
Ate Ambi, bakit nga ba tayo nakaganto? Ano ba to? Ba't nakaganto pa
Ay,
tayo?
oo nga, siguro nagtatanong sila ngayon bakit tayo naka-headband at bakit din ganito mga pangalan natin. Sige,
Oo.
mag-introduce na tayo. Unang-una sa lahat ay si Ate.
Yes, obvious na obvious. I am Jollibee.
And I am Chavi.
At ako naman si Ambi. Para saan ba to, guys? Para saan ba tong...
Para saan ba to? Ayan.
Ayan. So, yung mga nakakita sa ating promotion, we are the singing bee.
We're the singing
Yes,
bee.
later magpapalaro tayo. At ito nga ay The Singing Bee kung saan kakanta ang bawat host ngayon. Sure ba yan?
Wow,
Kakanta.
grabe.
Kakanta ba talaga?
Pinagandaan namin to, guys.
Pinagandaan to. Huwag kayong aalis, pagkakanta na kami. Hi guys! Walang aalis. And enjoy lang.
Yes, kasi syempre kailangan natin ang 50 pesos na load. Hindi pwedeng mawala yun. Kasi kailangan natin ngayon sa mga nag-online class, syempre.
Oo nga. Balita ko maraming mananalo. Ate Pate, ilan ba yung mananalo?
Syempre naman, not only 1, not only 2, but 7 winners! Woohoo!
7 winners!
Grabe, 7 winners?
7.
Ang dami. Yes.
Ang dami naman nun. Yan. Ate Pate, patingin sa comment section. Mukhang may mga nagpapashout na ulit.
Yes,
At
ayan,
madami na ding nagtatag. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Thank you, Catalyst.
Yes. Hello po, Bishop. Happy watching po.
Bishop is watching. Hello po, Bishop.
Yes.
Hello po.
Sabi ni Hosanna Praise Renyon, tara na, B! Yes!
Yes, tara na, B. Ito may nagpapa-shoutout. Hello, Elisha. Elisha Reyes. Yan, shoutout daw. And shoutout din daw
ang ating mga friends.
kay Christine Sanyuyo. Yan, sabi ni Daniela Astres Morales Recto. Yan. Guys, comment down pa rin kung sino yung mga gustong magpa-shoutout. And kung sino yung gustong magpamine, di ba, Ate Pate?
Yes.
Magpamine na lang.
Pamine po, Kuya Chubby. Yes,
Pamine lang. Pamine po, Kuya Chubby. Pamine po, Ate Jollibee. Pamine po, Ate Ambi. Yan, pwede po. Pamine na lang po. Yan.
Yes, dagdag din natin dyan. Wag natin kakalimutan ang ating mga first-time viewers. Type, "What's up, guys?" Sa ating
What's up,
comment
guys?
section.
What's up? Yan.
At ano kung meron tayong hashtag ngayon, Ate Jollibee. May hashtag tayo.
Yes, ang hashtag natin for this afternoon ay hashtag YGIG. Sino ba ako?
Yes, sino ba ako?
Sino ba
YGIG,
ako?
sino ba ako?
Sino ba ako, YGIG?
Ayan, para makita natin talaga ang mga naging viewers natin for this afternoon.
Sabi ni Kuya Ed, sana all may be. Yes naman.
Ayan.
Sana
Sabi
all
ni
may
Blessy
be.
Grace Austria. Hi po. Hello, Blessy.
Hi! Ayan, sabi niya hi daw. Ayan. Ate Faith, baka na tayo, diretso na tayo sa ating games kasi nakaka-excite na eh. Tanong natin kung excited na sila.
Guys,
Excited na ba kayo mga katalis sa games natin?
Yan, para malaman namin kung excited na kayo, dahil kami sobrang excited. Hindi man halata, di ba? If excited na kayo, Catalyst, type pa-mine.
Pa-mine na lang.
Para malaman na kayo na G na
Type
kayo sa
pa-mine. Yes, ready na ba kayo? Pa-type naman dyan.
Yan, sabi ni Rosel, mine mo na ba, Chubby? Ayan, pa-mine daw kay Chubby, sabi ni Rosel, ayan.
Yeah.
Hello.
Feeling ko
Hello.
kailangan mo
Hello.
na Ate Jollibee na isabihin ng mechanics ng ating game.
Alright. Dahil ang ating game title ngayong hapon ay The Singing BB. So obviously, lahat tayo ay kakanta. Wow, mga songer tayo ngayon. Yan. Ayan. Ito ang game na ito ay siguro na napapanood nyo na before sa isang network sa television. Pero this time, magkakaroon tayo ng twist dahil YGIG edition to. The Singing BB. Ayan. So magpa-flash kami ng mga ng lyrics ng mga kanta na alam ko familiar, hindi lang kami, kundi familiar din kayo, syempre. At kapag nakita niyo yung blank or yung missing lyrics doon sa song na yon, kailangan yung sagutin yon. Pero ito yung twist doon, guys. Hindi lahat magkakaroon ng chance para sagutin yung isang question na yon. Kasi we have prepared categories per song or per question na kung sino lang yung nandun sa category na yon or kung sino lang yung mga nandun sa category na sila lang yung pwedeng sumagot. Pero everyone has the chance to answer sa ibang mga questions or sa ibang mga song. Ayan.
Yes. At syempre, hindi tayo magsisimula ng walang sample ang bawat host na nandito. Syempre, gusto nyo bang narinig si Christian na kumanta, si Kuya Chubby?
Yes!
Gusto nyo ba?
Sagot kayo, yes!
Ako agad.
Type
Oh, yan.
yes.
Yan, sample. One less cry, one less try. Okay na yan.
Ang
Yan,
lamig,
yung
grabe
konti
naman.
lang yun, konti lang. Antayin nyo yung marami. Yan.
Yes.
More.
More.
Ano pa?
More cry,
More
Kuya
pa?
Chubby.
More cry pa? Okay na yan. Kasi inahanda ko yung
Okay.
boses ko mamaya. Okay na yun.
Next naman. Siyempre,
Si
di pa
ate.
huli. Ate Jollibee.
Si Aling
Yes.
Jollibee.
Grabe ano to, sobrang taas nitong kantang to eh. Tapos sobrang familiar sa lahat. Baby shark, baby.
Wala,
shark,
ginalingan.
Baby shark. Oh, eh.
Nice.
Ang galing. Grabe.
Galing. O, papauli ka pa ba? Ate Ambi. Yan.
Siyempre hindi. Sus.
Yan.
Gusto ko yung ano. Siyempre, promote natin ang ating Hope Music PH. Yan. Ang
Alright.
bagong kanta ngayon. Let my heart know. Ay, mali pa yung lyrics.
O, yan na. Nagloloka na lang tayo. Diretso na tayo doon sa trial round para malaman na ng ating mga
Okay.
katalis kung paano ang ating game.
Ayan, grabe guys, no? Sobrang effort namin, nag-practice kami, gumawa kami ng props para sa inyo, guys. Galingan nyo, guys. Go, go,
Okay,
go.
let's start for the trial round. Yan. So, ito ang example ng ating category, SHS students. So, lahat ng SHS students lang po ang kailangan sumagot. Okay, ready? Go.
Ready?
Pasensya ka na sa mga katang-isip kong ito. Maridala lang ng Pakitype na po ang susunod.
Yan, lahat ng senior high school lang yung pwedeng
Lahat ng
sumagot.
senior high school ang pwedeng sumagot.
Ayan. So, ang game na ito ay hindi lamang para manalo yung mga makakasagot, pero for us to get to know you guys, kung sino ang mga senior high school students pa lang.
Yan. Oh, may sumagot
ang susunod
na.
na lyrics po susunod na lyrics ang ilalagay, hindi ang title ng song.
Yes.
Ayun na, may
Either word or words.
Yan, may sumasagot
Yes.
na, ate. Patingin.
Yan.
Okay, si Kuya Ivan Francisco, nakita ko na.
Yan.
Tama ba yun?
Pakita na yung tamang sagot. Tama ba?
Magmamahal
Tama ba?
sa'yo.
Tama.
Yun, tama.
Pero trial lang yon.
Trial lang.
Yes.
Yun.
Ganon yung game yan. Hindi siya, guys, hindi siya title. Yung susunod na lyrics, yun yung itatype natin. It's either a word or a phrase. Wag title.
Yes.
Yan.
Okay, simulan
Okay na.
natin. Pwede na ba?
Simulan na.
Yan.
Okay
Guys,
na ba?
type pa mine ha, kapag G na talaga kayo. Alright.
G na.
Let's proceed to the game proper. Song number 1.
One. For moms and dad, or for
Yes.
dads.
Ang swerte nga naman ni Ding, lagi kanyang kapiling. Kung ako sa kanya, kita. Okay, ano yun? Anong birds ba yung mga nawawala dito? Or bird? Ayan.
Yon si Ate Ruth, ang totoong firm mom ngayon. Nakita niyo ba?
Check natin
Yan.
kung
Tama ba?
tama
Check
ang
mo kung tama.
sagot.
Niligawan eh.
Ah,
Pwede na yan? Pwede na yan. Yan.
Basic.
Basic.
Okay, next song. Next category.
May
My acrophobia or fear
Or?
of height.
yes. So guys, type na ng inyong mga sagot kapag ikaw ay may acrophobia.
Okay.
Dahil sa'yo'y naramdaman ang tunay na pagmamahal. Iibigin kita kahit Go Shopee!
Ayla, go na.
Salamat Shopee yan. Grabe.
Salamat,
Kilalang kilala
Shopee.
yan.
Salamat, Kuya Will.
Fear
Yes.
of heights. So, may sumagot na yata?
Si
Ayan.
Jazz Rivera.
Yes.
Si
Di
Jazz
makali.
Rivera. Tingnan natin kung tama. Ano ba ang tamang sagot? Ayun na, nagsadamihan na yung mga sumasagot. Sino ka
Tama.
man?
Sino ka man?
Tama si
Yes.
Jazz Rivera.
Wait. Pero titignan natin yung spelling kasi sino ka man. Wala namang word na kaman. So,
Oo nga.
tingin ko mas i-consider natin si Elisha Reyes.
Siya Reyes. Oo nga.
Yes.
Sorry.
Habol na lang.
Masyado-
Pero
Yes.
thank you Kuya Jazz dahil nabanggit mo sa amin or na-share mo sa amin na may acrophobia. So sa comment section pwede mo ba i-type kung ano yung experience mo nung last time na na-experience mo yung acrophobia. Yan, para malaman din ng ating mga catalysts. Okay.
Yan. Category
Category 3. Ayan. May online classes na. Sino dito ang may online class na? Ready na ba kayo dyan? Okay, tignan natin yung kakantin natin ngayon. Hindi tayo pwede, pinagtagpo, pero di tinadhana, hindi na posible. Na 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 suko na sa laban. Hindi tayo pwede. Ano yan?
Ayan, guys, ano yung sagot?
Medyo mahaba yan. Pahirap na tayo ng pahirap ngayon.
Ayan, mukhang may nakita na kang tamang sagot ah.
Ayan, reveal na natin
Mention
yung
mo
tamang
nga,
sagot.
Ate Faith, kung sino ang may tamang sagot.
I-reveal na muna natin yung tamang
consider
sagot.
natin.
Ang pusoy. Dapat kasama yung pang tuition.
Si Ate Rain. Si Ate Rain Carrion.
Si Ate Rain Carrion. Yan.
Yes,
Guys,
tama.
i-mind nyo yung dapat yung tamang ano. Yan.
Yan. Sorry, ang haba kasi pahirap na tayo ng pahirap ngayon. At next category. Yan. Sino ang inaabangan lagi ang YGIG?
Akin ba
Pwede
yun?
ba ako sumagot dito?
Yan. Oh.
Pwede,
Sino ba?
Ate Jollibee.
Feeling ko maraming sasagot yan. Maraming sasagot yan.
Tignan natin.
Yan.
Sino dito mga Taylor Swift lover? Ganun. I get tired of waiting, wondering if la 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 la, the fate in you was fading.
Yan. Ano ang tamang sagot, guys? Yan.
Go guys! Sa mga keyboard warriors dyan, bilis! Para sa 50 pesos worth of loot. Wondering if...
Yun, si Ate Faith. Ay, si Ate Praise. Ate Praise.
Yes. Oops! Yeah, tama. Ate Praise.
Tama
Yan.
si Ate Praise.
Flash natin
Yeah.
yung tamang sagot.
Okay, and ang susunod ay category 5. Coffee
Yan, madami
addicts.
ding sasagot niyan.
Mga mahilig sa
Dami
kape,
din.
yung mga nagsusunod ng kilay, kailangan natin ng kape dyan.
Ayan, kape-kape lang. Tingnan natin kung sino yung mahilig sa kape. Ayan.
Ito. So, I'm coming home to you. Na 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 na.
You are home.
Hantas eh.
Ano na? Ayan.
Ano na?
Guys, ano yung tamang sagot? Ako, mukhang nahirapan sila. Nahirapan sila.
Grabe.
Ayan na.
Sabi ni Tracy, mahabang yan.
Feeling ko
Pero
si Kuya Ezekiel.
Yes.
May sumasagot na. Tama ba?
Yes, you're all I need. Yan, siya nga.
Coffee addict si EJ Carino.
Yes, si Kuya EJ.
Yan. Yan. Next na. Mukhang ako na yung next.
Next category. Yes, Kuya Chabi, ikaw na nga.
Yan. Fan naman ng mga fan ng Marvel movies. Yan. Mukhang marami din sasagot na ito. Ready na mga keyboard warriors? Show na yung lyrics. Life can be short or long. Love can be right or wrong. If I choose
be
be right or wrong. Love can be right or wrong. If I chose the one I'd like to help me through, I'd like to blank. I really think that we could make it, girl. Yan, may mga sumasagot
si
na.
Kuya Christian.
May sumasagot na.
Ayan, may tamang sagot na.
Yan.
Tama.
Sino yung pinakatama? Patingin,
Tama
sino yung pinakatama?
Si Jazz.
Jazz. Yes,
Yan,
si
nakabawi
Jazz.
si Jazz. Yes.
Yun. Grabe, oh. Fan pala siya ng Marvel.
Fan ng Marvel. Hindi,
Next,
madami
Kuya
din naman
Chabi.
sumagot. Next, ang category nating next ay eto. Lalabas ang mga favorite, ang math subjects.
Sino kaya
Ang math subject lang pala. Yan. Yan, oh. Yan.
Natawa ako sa
Kaya
sinabi
lang.
ni Jericho Balawag. Sabi niya, effective yung pag-iba ng tono, nalimutan ko.
Yan. Ano yun? Tactics yun. Ano ba? Tactics yun. Yan. Di ba't sabi mo hindi mo ko iwan? Hindi pa babayan na ako'y mag-isa. Di ba't sabi mo sabay tayong tatanda? Bakit bigla ka na lang nandyan? Blank! Ano yung title? Ano yung title? Yan. Ayan, walang sumagot! Nako!
Yan.
Ako! Ay!
Kahit ako di ko yun
Ayan,
alam.
ayan. Nalungkot ba kayo sa kanta ko? Yan, yan o.
Ayan, may
Shoutout.
nakasagot.
Walang sumasagot. Wala mo nang sumasagot. Shoutout daw, Edward Stone Regoso. Shoutout, Kuya Ed. O, ano pa?
Wala daw
Buong naiyak sila sa kanta ko. Walang sumagot. Sorry,
Either
guys.
hindi nila
Sorry.
favorite ang math, or di nila grabe nakuha yung kanta, Chubby.
Oo nga eh. Ano, ayaw nyo ng math? Grabe. Pero may sumagot ate. Patingin na lang ulit.
Tingnan natin ang tamang sagot.
Ano?
May nagsabi,
Ay, may tama. Si
Si Jazz.
si Jazz,
Jazz,
nanalo
Nakita ko
na
si
siya
Jazz.
kanina.
Nanalo na siya kanina eh.
Oo.
So, give chance to others. Ang nanalong sumunod ay si Pleno Denise. Si Denise yan. Denise Pleno.
Yes.
Yan. Congratulations sa 7 na nanalo.
Congratulations.
Pili ko sinerch na nila sa Google yung ano eh.
Oo nga eh. Sinerch nyo na lang. Ano ba yan?
Nalito sila sa'yo, Kuya Tabi. Sinerch na lang
Yung pa
sa
naman yung
Google.
maganda kong bigay. Yun yung maganda kong bigay na lyrics. Sinerch nyo pa sa Google. De, joke lang. Yan. Congrats guys. Congrats.
Congrats,
Sabi
guys!
ni Eliza James Carino, ang magmahal ng ganito. Parang ibang kanta yun.
Parang iba yun ah.
Parang ganun yun, guys.
Parang iba yun.
Ayan. Welcome sa mga bago.
Welcome din. Welcome sa mga bago.
Yes, welcome natin sila.
Ito nagpapa-shoutout kaibigan ko din. Kay Sara Ogalisco. Yan, shoutout daw. Friends ko yan. Yan. From college yan. Yung iba, pa-shoutout lang. Tas tag nyo pa. Ito din, si
Tag nyo
shoutout
ang
din
mga
daw kay
friends
Serapine Terdi Loreta. Hello po. Yan, shoutout din daw. Yan. Yan.
Pa-shoutout din daw kay Ed. Sabi ni Ed, pakikanta ulit. Sabi, pakikanta daw ulit.
Huwag nang tapos na eh. Let.
Ayan.
Yan.
Okay, so na tapos na
Ayan.
tayo sa ating game. Grabe, sobrang hype ng ating mga catalyst at sobrang very responsive nila sa ating game dahil pinaghandaan natin to. Ayan, may 7 winners tayo. Congratulations, guys.
Congrats
Congrats.
po! Talagang
Congrats.
magkakasundo sila sa comment section eh.
Oo nga eh.
Same
Hindi ko
sila
alam
ng
kung
mga
ano
tip.
eh. Yan.
Ngayon, Kuya Chris,
Siyempre, hindi na tayo magpapatumpik-tumpik pa. Di ba, Kuya Christian?
Yes, hindi na tayo papatumpik-tumpik pa. Tayo'y mag-move na sa ating pinaka-importanting part ng ating YGIG. Ngayon, pakilala na natin ang ating... teka lang nga. Bakit ba? Ano ba yung title ng YGIG natin ngayon? Ayan. Di ba? Ang title natin ngayon, Sino ba ako? Anong tanong yun? Sino ba ako? Natanong nyo na ba yan sa sarili nyo? Sino ba ako? Yan. Ngayong Friday na ito, malalaman natin ng bakit ganun yung title na yan. So, yan.
Yes.
Pakilala na natin.
Ito ang webinar on understanding your identity in your life experiences. At ngayon, introduce na natin ang ating speaker. Ready na ba kayo? Yan.
Yan.
So, let's start. Okay. Our speaker for today has graduated as magna cum laude in taking up Bachelor of Arts in Theology, major in Pastoral Studies in Phoebeus College of Bible, a recipient of Preaching Proficiency Award.
He is currently taking up his master's degree in pastoral studies at Asian Theological Seminary and a consistent full academic scholarship grantee for both school. Wow! He is also an intern in counseling.
And without a further ado, let us all welcome Mr. Rejoice Merelos. Woo!
Welcome po, Kuya
Yeah, hello, yeah.
Doris.
Welcome, Kuya
Yan.
Hello, hello,
Doy.
yeah.
Welcome, Kuya Dois.
Thank you for that very generous introduction. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm not sure if my camera is working right kasi nakatagilid daw ako. Tama ba? Or
Opo,
Okay.
yes po.
Opo, nakabaligtad po.
so, okay, teka lang ha.
Yan po. Yan.
Yan, guys,
Sige,
welcome
while
natin si
I'm
Kuya
fixing it, do you have your
Doris.
question?
Kuya Dois, marami nang nag-welcome sa'yo dito sa ating comment section. Sabi ni Ate Rosel Danica, welcome daw po. And sino pa ba ang mga nag-welcome? Yan. Yan. Hello daw din po.
Sige.
Welcome po. Ayan, dami na po.
Yeah, thank you. Pwede ba mag-leave muna ako and then I'll go back kasi medyo may problema yung screen ko. Okay lang.
Okay lang po. Sige po. Ayan.
Ayan, Catalyst.
Entertain mo rin natin ang ating mga
Enter-
catalyst ngayon.
Tuloy lang kayo sa pag-shoutout o sa pag-comment sa ating comment section at babasahin po namin yan isa-isa.
Ayan. O mag-share muna tayo. Bakit ikaw at Ate Tate, Ate Jollibee, ano ang dating sa'yo pag tinanong mo sa sarili mo, sino ba ako? Yan. Yan. Share mo naman.
Ayan. Sobrang simpleng tanong, pero minsan mahirap sagutin. Wow!
Oh.
Ayan, sino
Yes,
nga ba
yes.
ako? Medyo siguro nalalabuan ako ngayon eh.
Ayan.
Pero siguro kapag natapos na yung session natin, malinawan na tayo.
Yun yung mabuti, yung malilinawan tayo. Yan.
Ayan,
Welcome
mukhang
back
nandiyan
ulit,
si Kuya
Kuya
Doy.
Dois.
Ayan,
Ayan,
okay,
nandiyan
yeah.
si Kuya
Okay
Dois.
na yung camera natin. Hello, thank you for welcoming.
Okay, Kuya Dois, mukhang excited ng ating mga catalyst na marinig ang inyong talk sa hapong ito.
Yan.
Yeah. Ako din, equally excited.
Ate Jollibee, baka meron kang question muna kay Kuya Doris bago siya mag-start.
Yes, Kuya Dois. Siguro, ano po ba ang nag-push sa inyo para mag-take ng course na natapos nyo?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, I have a very long answer for that. But just to give you a short answer for that, I think I felt that I was called by the Lord to enter full-time ministry. That's why I took theology in Phoebus College of Bible. And then afterwards, I felt that I need more training when it comes to understanding people, relating to people, having being able to understand the stories behind their lives. And so that's the reason why I took counseling. And also, one of the pushing factors is also the full scholarship. So I was granted full scholarship at Asian Theological Seminary. And so that's the reason why I really grabbed this opportunity to improve myself at the same time for me to be able to be used by the Lord in the ministry more effectively. Yeah.
Wow. Grabe. Talagang ministry, tinawag po kayo sa ministry na ito para po, hindi lang ang Lord ang mapaglingkuran, pero yung mga tao na nangangailangan talaga. Especially for,
Exactly.
yes. Ayan.
Right.
Kayo, Chubby, Ambi, do you have questions for Kuya Doy?
Okay na po, excited na po kami mapakinggan ang
Excited
ating
na po
webinar
kami.
ngayon.
Mapakinggan po. Excited na po kami, Kuya
Yeah.
Dois.
Yeah, I'm equally excited. Excited din ako to share what the Lord has in store for us this afternoon. All right. So I'd like to greet everyone. A good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the organizers of this event for allowing me to be part of this program. And so I'll be talking about Sino ba ako? No? Under that, there's a subtitle, Understanding Your Identity in Your Life's Experiences. And this is a very good topic, especially that we are amidst pandemic. No? Now that we are quarantined inside our homes, marami sa atin nagstay lang at home. No? So there's no other options but to, libangin natin yung ating sarili, improve natin yung ating sarili. Some of you have been learning skills that you have not learned before. And we are immersed, most especially in social media. Right now, we are in the era of Instagram, in the era of TikToks, wherein people are flaunting themselves. People are showing what they've got, showing their looks, showing what the things that they can do. And magandang observation to kasi a lot of people right now are getting more depressed, no, getting more anxious. No, they are the more that they know themselves, the more that they discover more about themselves, the more that they feel bad about themselves. I don't know if this is true for you. Hindi ko alam kung itong bagay na ito ay totoo sa'yo. But I'd like to say today is that everything that happens to us or everything that happens around us can actually affect who we really are and who we think we are and what we feel we are. And so I think this is a very relevant topic kasi um, this is the time that we can really reflect upon the things about ourselves, the things about uh, our personality, our lives, our experiences, in order for us to get a better grasp of who we really are as we talk about identity this afternoon. And so this afternoon, I'd like to introduce to you a different perspective into looking about your identity, looking in your identity, for you to be able to see a wider understanding or wider grasp of who you are when it comes to understanding your life's experiences and your identity. And also, I'd like for us to see the gospel. Okay, what's the role of the gospel all throughout our understanding of who we are and the understanding of our life's experiences. My thesis or my proposition is that for us to be able to see how the gospel penetrates into our stories. Gaano man kadilim yung ating istorya, gaano man kalalim o kadumi sa palagay natin yung ating mga kwento. Alam ko at naniniwala ko na ang gospel o ang ginawa ni Kristo sa krus ng Kalbaryo ay maaaring maka-impluwensya sa ating pagtingin sa ating sarili. So I have, sa next slide, we will see these three perspectives in order for us to understand who we are, no? Pagpasensyahan niyo na yung mga terms medyo palagay ko ang mga terms na ito ay iba sa inyo, ngayon niyo lang narinig. Pero let me just explain it more carefully. A lot of people would go into understanding themselves just by understanding the self aspect. Okay? Gusto nilang maunawaan yung kanilang sarili, pero napaka-individualistic. Ano ibig kong sabihin? They're not ourselves. Remember that ourselves ay hindi lang apektado ng mga bagay patungkol sa pagkaunawa natin na ating sarili. Ngunit ito din ay apektado kung paano natin nauunawaan ng iba, which is others, the situational, which is the world, no? Other people around us. At kung paano rin natin nauunawaan ng Diyos. No? Maaring mahalaga na maintindihan natin at maunawaan natin paano uunawain ang ating sarili sa likod o sa ilaw ng pagkaunawa natin sa Diyos, pagkaunawa natin sa iba. Because whether we like it or not, our understanding of who God is affect our understanding of who we are. And our understanding of others also affects our understanding of who we are. So let me just tell you, no, there are secular schools that would take away God, remove God from the equation, and they will just focus on self and others. No? Psychology, secular psychology, we don't need God. There are other schools naman that would say, no, I don't know if you've encountered people like this, na we don't need science, we don't need psychology, we don't need neurology or medical science. We just need ourselves and the Bible because it's how God revealed Himself to us. So let's reject all the sciences. No? But for me, I think our understanding of God as He revealed Himself through the Scriptures, alongside our understanding or good grasp of the sciences, psychological sciences, neuroscience, medical sciences, will help us to better understand ourselves. So that's why this afternoon, what I'll be teaching you, what I'll be sharing you is actually a combination of these three. And I hope that you will be able to bear with me in our understanding, in our discussion of our identity this afternoon. And so, let's proceed. A lot of people are confused about the definition of identity. By the way, the identity is not self-image and it's not self-esteem. Okay? Let me just give you a different perspectives on these things. Number one, self-image or self-concept. It is the way how you perceive yourself. It is very cognitive. Ano yung tingin mo sa sarili mo cognitively? Okay? It's how you think of yourself as the moment. So pwedeng you think you're smart, you think you're good at sports, you think you're negatively, you think you're not smart, you think you're fat, you think maraming bagay. Tingin mo, pangit ka, pwede yun, di ba? That's a self-image, that's self-concept. Self-esteem, on the other hand, okay, is how you, it's actually deeper. It's how you like or dislike yourself in any given situation. If self-image is a cognitive aspect, self-esteem is actually an affective aspect. It's how you feel about yourself, no? Kasi hindi porkit ganito yung tingin mo sa sarili mo, ganun na yung nararamdaman mo sa sarili mo. Kasi pwedeng tingin mo naman matalino ka, pero ang pakiramdam mo, iba. Pwedeng tingin mo mahal ka, pero ang pakiramdam mo, hindi, right? So, self-esteem and self-image has to be differentiated. Let me just give you an example. You think you're good at school, no? That's what you think. You are good at school. But you feel like since your parents do not compliment you, your parents do not appreciate you, even your colleagues or your teachers do not appreciate you. Even the tingin mo, you think your self-image is you're good at school, the feeling is actually different. That's self-esteem. The feeling of what I feel about this situation, what I feel about this event is actually different from how I see myself, what I think about myself. Sabi ni Kirwan, one of my professors, Dr. Kirwan, sabi niya, feelings beliefs are 10 times more powerful than cognitive beliefs. Ulitin ko yun. Feelings beliefs or feeling beliefs are 10 times more powerful than cognitive beliefs because feelings can actually overpower the cognitive part, the cognitive beliefs, no? Because feelings are composed of, the things that we are not aware of. Andun pala pero hindi ka aware. And that can actually overshadow what you think about yourself. And so now we have differentiated what self-image and what self-esteem is. Let's proceed with what identity really means. The secular books define identity as the qualities, beliefs, and looks or expressions that make a person. That's how the books define identity. The qualities, beliefs, personality, looks, and expressions that make a person. But I don't think that this definition will actually suffice in our understanding of our identity. I don't think this is a complete definition. That's why I won't use this definition all throughout my discussion this afternoon. What I see about identity, it's something that's deeper than that. It's something broader than that. So I would define identity. So this is my definition of identity. It is who we are, regardless of who we think we are, and we feel, and who others think and feel about who we are. Ulitin ko yun. Identity is who we are, regardless of who we think and feel we are, and who others think and feel we are. I think I have put that in the PowerPoint. So can we just show it so that I think that's it. Who we are, regardless of who people think and what we think about ourselves. Why? Because if your identity is only based on your feelings, only based on the current personality and expressions, we know these things will change over time, right? And we do not want actually to have an identity that is based on something that is changing. That's why here, I hope that you're getting excited because I'll discuss something about identity that's actually unchanging. It's something that you can hold on to yourself. Pwede mo siyang kunin, pwede mo siyang i-embrace. Identity na pwede mong embrace that's not changing. Okay? Before we proceed to that, let's move on with the discussion about the self. No? Let's take, nakita niyo yung tatlong circles, diba? Let's take the self muna and see what we can get there. Number one, there are lots of beliefs about the self. There could be lots of beliefs. You could have lots of beliefs about yourself, no? But what's saddening is that our society has elevated just one aspect of the self, no? Yung society natin kasi masyadong ini-elevate, for example, yung physical dimension lang, di ba? Kaya pag naghahanap ka ng love life o ng tao ng will ni God, quote and unquote, ang una mong hinahanap, physical dimension. No? Kasi that's what the society has embraced to be the superior dimension. O kaya the intellectual dimension. No? That's what the society considers second to, I think, the physical dimension. Dapat matalino, gwapo, matalino, and then pangatlo, mabait. Right? But there are lots of dimensions that we can actually see when it comes to understanding ourselves. Number one is the physical dimension. How you think about your physical appearance, or what you think about your physical appearance. There are studies that have shown that they conducted the study. 3 out of 4 women actually said that they are overweight. 3 out of 4 women actually said that they're overweight. Tinanong sila, do you think you're overweight? 3 out of 4 would say they think they're overweight. But when they were tested, when they were weighed, actually just 1 out of 4 women lang ang overweight. And so this perspective, yung kanilang pagtingin sa kanilang sarili, feeling nila overweight sila, but in reality, that's not really the case. So it could be that how we think about our physical dimension actually differ from how others think or how others perceive us. That's also a possibility. Second, there is a psychological dimension. What do you think about your personality? It's my first time to teach this material to young people, and I'm not sure if you young people have already taken personality assessments or psychological assessments, no? But some people, may mga kabataan na kapag nag-take sila ng personality assessment, feeling nila yun, kilala na nila yung sarili nila, even though isang personality assessment lang yun na-take nila. If you're familiar with this personality assessment, I have nothing against this, but lots of people will say, ikaw, letter D ka, letter I ka, or letter S ka, or C ka. We label people according to what the personality assessments tell us. But let me just tell you that you cannot understand yourself or the personality dimension here just by taking one personality assessment. So in counseling, in therapy, we have to understand that there are lots of personality assessments out there that we can actually take in order for us to better understand ourselves. Number 3, you have the intellectual dimension. No? A lot of people would glory sa mga academic achievements sila. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, hindi lang academic ang intelligence. There's athletic intelligence, artistic intelligence, di ba? Actually, there are 8 to 9 intelligences out there na maaaring hindi ka nga magaling sa academic or sa math or science, pero magaling ka sa ibang bagay like music, arts, and you have to understand that within your own understanding of yourself. Next, we have the skills dimension. How you evaluate your skills or your social and technical skills. No? A lot of people, I would be able to assess a person kapag hindi pa kami magkakilala, una kaming nakita, I would ask, saan ka magaling? Saan ka mahina? And usually, lots of young people, makikita mo yung awareness ng isang tao sa kanyang sarili, nahihirapan sumagot kapag tinanong mo, saan ka magaling? Kasi feeling nila magmamayabang. But it's not actually pagmamayabang. When a person asks you, saan ka magaling, you have to be able to answer that because that's self-awareness. And in understanding saan ka magaling, you also understand, and you also have to understand saan ka naman mahina. Because that's part of your self-awareness. You have to understand that. Letter E, it's moral dimension. Yan, no? Alam natin yan, mga Christians, no? We evaluate ourselves based on the morality that has been given to us by the scriptures. Pero nakakalungkot lang, in my observation, Christians will think that they are morally superior to the point that they look down on other religion or other people because they think that these people are secular, these people are dirty, I hope that we are not taking our moral dimension or our Christian moral standards and then use that to judge people and condemn or look down on other people. I hope that's not happening inside our churches. I hope that's not happening inside our family because if the more we understand this moral dimension, the more we should be gracious, no? Sa ibang tao, sa mga tao na kasalamuhan natin. And I hope that that's not true for you. Next is sexual dimension. Sexual dimension is how a person feels he or she fits into society's masculine and feminine norms. So I just want to revise this a little bit, because I don't want you to align yourselves according to what society defines to be masculine and feminine, diba? Minsan ang toxic ng society natin eh. The society has already defined this is the characteristics of a masculine man, no? And this is the characteristics. This is the only characteristics for women. Where in fact, minsan yung mga standards natin ganun, hindi natin nare-revisit, and we have to revisit it every once in a while. And so that is the self, no? I just want you to understand that there are several dimensions in understanding yourself. That's why it's hard to understand yourself, right? It's hard to understand ourselves. How much more understanding other people around us? That's why, diba, ang payo nga sa atin, huwag tayo mabilis mag-cast ng condemnation, ng judgment, kasi napakalalim o napakalawak ng pwede pa nating maintindihan patungkol sa ating sarili at patungkol sa iba. So ngayon tatalon tayo, i-bridge natin yung gap dun sa understanding natin ng ating sarili, our understanding about ourselves, and our understanding of other people. Is it really true that other people affect who we are? Or other people affect understanding, our understanding of who we are? I like one of the things that I've learned from a webinar. She said, the speaker said, our brains are actually wired for connections. No, this is actually very biblical, because we are created as relational beings. Like, we are created in the image of God, and one of the implications of the image of God is that we are relational beings. That's why we are seeking for connections. We are seeking for relationships. We are naturally seeking for it. We are naturally seeking for connection and proximity, nearness, closeness with each other. However, minsan gusto nating makikonnect, we want to pursue, we want to connect, but sometimes we end up in that attempt to connect, in that attempt to have a relationship, we end up being hurt and wounded, right? Especially when the person is unavailable, or sometimes our problems are being belittled, or they hear us but they do not listen to us. No? These things can actually hurt us. These things can actually wound us when all of our attempt is to just actually build a healthy and good relationship. So sabi ni Harville Hendricks, I'm not sure if I've put it on my PowerPoint. He said, we are born in relationship. Yeah, I put it. We are wounded in relationship, and we can be healed in relationships, right? As not physical wound, but emotional wounds. We are born in relationship, we are wounded in relationships, and we can be healed in relationships. Let me ask you, what's the first relationship that we as human beings are aware of? The first relationship that we are aware of is, of course, our relationship with our parents, especially our relationships with our mother. Sa psychologist, meron siyang stages of development na formulate. The first stage actually is the symbiosis stage. That's what you call, no, kapag ang baby ay 0 to 6 months pa lamang. Tawag niya diyon is the symbiosis stage or symbiotic stage, no? Dito sa stage nito, ang kailangan, ang bata ay suportahan ng kanyang nanay. Kailangan the mother is very affectionate, the mother is very connected to the child. By the way, why am I mentioning this? Because as early as first months, no? 0 month ka pa lang, you already can connect emotionally with your parents, even though you are not aware of it. No? You are an emotional being already. You can actually sense the love and the care of your mother, of your parents. No? And during this stage, during this period of time, the mother has to be very supportive and caring. And sometimes may mga bata that they don't experience this, diba? Especially yung mga pinamigay na bata, yung mga bata na pinaampon, no? They have not experienced, or maagang namatay yung nanay nila, they have not experienced this tender care from their mothers during this stage. And so, according to studies, when this stage is disrupted o hindi na ibigay ng nanay yung care na dapat sa anak during this stage, there's a tendency for the person to be psychotic, to acquire autism, psychopathy, depression, and some other personality disorders. So you see the effect. Ganto ka palang kabata, ganto ka palang ka-fragile, your relationship already with your parents can actually affect your growth, your personality, your development. Next, we have the separation and individuation stage, which is 6 to 24 months. Okay, this stage is it's when the child must be able to individuate. Pag sinabing individuate, makita niya na yung difference niya na siya ay individual being, na siya ay different being from his or her mother. So dito makikita mo yung baby na fascinated na siya pag tumitingin siya sa salamin, kinakapa niya yung facial features ng mother niya or ng father niya. Kasi this time, dinidifferentiate niya na yung kanyang sarili na I'm not my mother, I'm a different human being. No? That's why that has to be supported. Kailangan suportahan yung separation, yung individuation. Pero, minsan ang nangyayari dito, yung mother sobrang overprotective. Yan. Nakaka-resonate ba kayo dyan? Yung mother sobrang overprotective, ayaw ka ibigay sa iba, ayaw kang pakagat sa labok, ayaw ka madapa, ayaw ka ibigay sa tatay mo. This is the time, no, that the fathers should actually initiate, no? Kailangan ito yung time na yung father will help the child to individuate from the mother. No? Makita niya yung separation. And if this stage is not fulfilled, if the need of the child during this stage is not fulfilled, there's a tendency that the child would develop narcissism, again, depression, borderline personality disorders, and actually homosexuality. That's why some of the studies in homosexuality would say that the absence of the father or rejection by the father affects the homosexual tendency for the child. So, what's my point here? And then last, you have the object consistency, which I will not discuss. What is my point here? As early as batang-bata ka pa, no? Batang-bata ka pa, you can actually be affected emotionally. And that affects who you are right now. That affects your development. That actually affects your growth. You cannot say na, hindi pa, bata pa naman yan, wala pa yung alam. No. Ganun ka palang kabata since you are an emotional being. That's why we should not, as church people, no, we should not vilify or look down on emotions, because emotions are part of who we are. We are created to be relational beings. That's why we are created to be emotional beings. And so what are the other factors that affect, no, how do these factors caused by others affect us, our understanding of ourselves, and our understanding of our own identity? Let me just give you two examples, okay, that can affect us. No? Others do that can affect us. Number one, negligence and abandonment. When a person, huwag na natin sabihin bata, pero yung isang tao, no, na na-neglect at na-abandon, ano kaya mga posibilidad na epekto nun sa kanya? Una, poor listening may lower your self-esteem, right? When you come to a person that the person doesn't want to listen to you, what would you think? What would you think? I think I'm not worthy of his or her time. Hindi ako karapat-dapat sa time niya. Walang kwenta yung kwento ko. Walang kwenta yung sasabihin ko. It's actually an attack. Okay? It's an attack to your self-esteem. It's an attack to how you understand yourself, right? That's why we are encouraged to be good listeners, because by being a good listener, you will be able to affirm the person. You will be able to create a safe space for that person to actually share his or her story to you, diba? That's why you should not look down on being a good listener, because being a good listener is actually very hard and it requires skill. Number two, when we are dismissive, others will turn themselves away. Pag ikaw yung taong dismissive, hindi pa nga sinasabi yung problema, hindi pa tapos, naka-dismiss ka na, naka-sermon ka na, no? If there are parents here, no, I don't know if there are parents listening here, but if your child is telling you stories about their school, about their problems, just listen. Just allow them to ventilate their emotions to you. Don't give sermons right away, right? Just allow that experience of talking be a safe space for your child. And next, number three, the person internalizes that he or she is not worthy. That's what I've said earlier. If you are being negligent, or even sa mga kwentuhan lang, no, pwede mong ma-feel nung tao na abandoned siya or neglected siya just by having this kind of attitude when it comes to listening to other people. And so, why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Because, as I've said, we are created to be in a relationship. And usually, the same relationship can actually break us, can actually cause wound in our emotional understanding of ourselves or in our emotional health. That's the first thing. Now, number two is a bit sensitive, so I want you uh, uh, to relax and listen carefully because I want to explore this thing with you. But there are people who are actually abused and traumatized. There are people who are abused verbally, abused physically, abused sexually. No, during this quarantine, don't you know that my colleagues would report to me that the cases in violence, sexual abuse, and verbal abuse, physical abuse, especially dun sa mga marginalized community, nag-i-increase, pataas ng pataas, no? Hindi siya bumababa. So, especially during this time of quarantine, kasi nasa bahay lang yung mga tao. And sometimes the abusers are relatives, yung mga taong nasa kanilang kamag-anak, na close sa kanila. And that's very sad, no? And let me just discuss this quickly. Let's be scientific here. We will discuss about the parts of the brain. Number one, amygdala. Amygdala is responsible for signaling to the body whether the environment is safe or not. And so, ang amygdala, which is located dito sa part ng brain ng ulo natin dito, it's actually an alarm that will tell you whether or not yung environment mo, yung paligid mo ay safe for you or unsafe for you, no? That's the function of amygdala. That's why kapag hindi safe yung environment, yung amygdala natataranta na yan, nag-a-alarm na yan. That's why nagpapanik ka, tumataas yung heart rate mo, pinagpapawisan ka. That's the function of amygdala. The hippocampus, on the other hand, is the regulator. I have a picture sa next slide natin. I think we can show it. Yeah, the hippocampus is actually ang taga-kalma, no? Tagapagpakalma sa amygdala. And so for example, let me give you a situation. Kapag nasa madilim ka na lugar, nakakita ka ng kable, nakakala mo ahas, no? Nung makala mo ahas, the amygdala signals to you, ay ahas yan. So matataranta ka, sisigaw ka, magugulat ka. Because it's the amygdala reacting. The job of the hippocampus is to tell the amygdala, it's not ahas. No? Yun yung logic, yun yung time. It sets the reality for you. And it tells the amygdala, hindi yan ahas, it's just a cable. So I hope that you're getting the function of amygdala and hippocampus here. So why am I saying this? Because during trauma and during abuse, okay, the hippocampus actually shrinks down. It fails the function. Okay? And during the abuse and during the trauma, who calms down the amygdala? Diba? Wala, no? So ang amygdala natin, sobrang alert na alert siya, hindi nagpa-function ang hippocampus. Nagsishrink yung hippocampus. That's why during trauma and abuse, you would see people na aligaga sila. They don't know what to do to the point that they are being frozen, no? There's another understanding here, another perspective, no? There's part of our brain na located sa Broca's area, sa left side of our brain, that is responsible for logic and language. This part left side of our brain, responsible for language and logic. And so according to experts, when a person is being traumatized or during the sexual or violent or physical verbal abuse, that side of the brain is actually shutting down. Hindi nagfa-function yung part ng brain na yun. That's why tinatanong natin, di ba? Mahilig natin sabihin kapag ang tao, for example, sumakay siya ng bus, na sexually abused siya, or nahipuan siya, or whatsoever, we always say, ba't hindi ka nagsalita? Ba't hindi ka sumigaw? Why? Because that part of the brain that is responsible sa pagsasalita at sa pagsigaw is actually shutting down. That's why we cannot blame the person to, ba't hindi ka sumigaw? Sana sumigaw ka, sana nagsalita ka. You cannot blame that person because it's actually how our brain reacts. So why am I saying this? Ang daming scientific terms, ang daming explanations when it comes to how the brain actually functions. But why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I've seen in my clients, especially my clients who are abused and traumatized, I've seen that the abuse or the trauma that happened to them is actually an attack to themselves. No? Ikaw na yung na-sexually abuse, ikaw na yung na-traumatized, sinisisi pa nila sino? Yung kanilang sarili. Ba't hindi ako lumaban? Sana nagsumbong ako, sana ginawa ko to. You see what's happening here? What others do to you is actually an attack, again, an attack to yourself. Apektado pa rin yung self mo, apektado yung identity mo, apektado yung pananaw sa iyong sarili. No? You blame yourself. I was talking with this person who suffered from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Kasi na-aksidente yung kanyang sasakyan na sinasakyan. And then alam mo, sabi niya, when that happened, hindi ko sinisi yung driver. Hindi ko sinisi yung nag-invite sa akin dun sa event na yon, nung sa pupuntahan namin. Ang sinisi ko, sarili ko. Imagine, it's an accident, pero ang sinisisi mo, gusto niyang sisihin yung kanyang sarili. So basically, what's my underlying point? My underlying point is that what others do, their behavior, no, the way they project themselves, can actually affect you, can actually affect your understanding of yourself. I like what James Dobson, one of my favorite Christian psychologists, Christian counselor, said. Self-esteem is the most fragile attribute in human nature. It can be damaged by a very minor incident, and its reconstruction is often difficult to engineer. Self-esteem is very fragile. It can actually affect you. Isang maliit na insidente lang, isang maliit na pagkakamali lang that can actually affect you. And it's hard to reconstruct. It's hard to build again because it takes a lot of time. So how do we usually respond to others? Kabila naman, that's how actually others affect us. But how do we usually respond to others? So there are, sabi ni Richard Rohr, no? He argued that the most damaging aspects of someone's life is actually not being able to be connected. Sabi dyan, di ba nakalagay sa slide natin, there are beliefs about what am I gonna do to be able to connect to other people. Because, as I've said, again, I hope that you're getting my point. We are created to be relational beings, therefore we are created to connect to other people. And so we want that connection. And sometimes when that connection is disrupted, that's the most painful thing ever, right? That's very true with Adam and Eve, di ba? It's not hindi yung failure nila ang pinakamasakit na nangyari sa kanila. It's their disconnection from God. They're disconnected from God. That's how sin entered the world, right? They disconnected themselves from God, and that's where pain actually started, suffering started, and all these things because they used to be connected with God, and now they have been disconnected from God. And so, if a fast track ko na lang, no, so we're running out of time. What could be the responses? What are the typical responses that we have? We call it the major neurotic solutions, or our solutions to be able to connect to other people. There are persons or there are people who do comply. No? They are more of moving towards the person. So ang kanilang motto, I'll be lovable so that you won't hurt me. Yung mga tao na ito, gagawin ko lahat ng bagay, ma-please ka, just don't hurt me. Ano yung mga taong martir, mga desperado, di ba? Ganyan. They will do everything. They go towards you. They connect to you. Kahit na nalulus na nila yung sarili nila, they move towards you just as long as you won't hurt them. Right? There are people naman who are the opposite. They are moving away. When I say moving away, apathetic. Wala na lang silang pakialam. You know, do you have those people na walang pakialam sa nangyayari, walang pakialam sa pamilya? Bakit? They are detaching, they are disconnecting. Because for them, if they disconnect, if they detach, they won't be hurt. So again, that's a mechanism. They move away. And third, there are people who are moving against. These are the people na wala nang ginawa kundi makipag-away, makipaglaban, ipaglaban ang kanyang kagustuhan. Why? Because this person says, if I control you, if I go against you, you won't be able to hurt me. And I want you to take note of this. These are responses. These are responses whenever we are confronted with shame, anger, and frustrations. Right? I just want to ask, how can you, where can you identify yourself with? Nakikita mo yung sarili mo na moving towards ka, moving away, moving against. A healthy person, just to give you a tip, a healthy person is someone who can actually do the three, no? Depending on the situation. Depende sa situation, kailangan may times na you move towards, sometimes you move away, sometimes there are times that you have to move against. But an unhealthy person, not a person who has a personality problem actually, isa lang yung kanyang solution. Lagi siyang moving away, or lagi siyang moving towards, or lagi siyang moving against. So you have to reflect on that. Ako ba laging moving towards? Ako ba laging moving away? Or in some points of my life, I can actually assess the situation and respond according to the situation. Okay? And so sometimes, because the situation is so, causes lots of anxiety, lots of shame, lots of frustration, di natin alam paano tayo mag-respond. So minsan, tumatalon tayo from being the real us, kung sino talaga tayo, to our ideal self. And nakakalungkot because sometimes the church becomes a space or becomes a community na ang taas-taas ng level ng anxiety and shame ng mga tao. Bakit? Kasi madalas tayo nagpapahiya sa ating mga sarili. Tayo nagko-cause ng anxiety ng bawat isa. That's why we see lots of people inside the church. I hope this is not true for you. Lots of young people, lots of people inside the church who are wearing masks. They don't know who they are. They just want to go with the flow. And lots of young people, I'm telling you, lots of young people are like that. They don't know who they are. They're just wearing their masks because this is what the society accepts. That's why this afternoon, I want you to understand your identity. Because your identity, who you are, does not depend on what society accepts. And your identity, who you are, does not depend on what you personally accept. Your identity is something more than that. So let's proceed. No? I hope that if you have questions, just type it on the comment section. We'll be trying to deal with them later on. But I hope that you're getting my point right now. I've said lots of things, but we have only dealt with two aspects. Dun sa triangle na pinakita ko sa inyo kanina, right? We have just dealt with the self, existential, and others. But identity wouldn't be complete if we will not be talking about God, if we will not be talking about the normative aspect, because that completes our understanding of who we are. And that will give us the element of an identity that is not shaken by the societal standards, but actually firm and founded in who God is. So why is it important for us to understand this? Because if our identity is self-based, if our identity is self-founded, no, it will not last. It will change and change and change. Right? There are debates between the philosophers. Sabi ng isang philosopher, you cannot stand on the same river twice because the river is actually changing. No? Sabi ng isang philosopher, not only that the river is changing, but you yourself, you as a person, you are also changing. We are changing. Our society changes. If our identity is based on something or someone that changes, how can we find it? How can we have a strong and firm identity? That's why I suggest, and what I would like to teach is that our identity should be based and should be founded in who the Lord is, who God is in our lives, how we understand God in our lives. So I just want to bring you into a narrative in the Old Testament, a story about Jacob when he actually wrestled with God. No? Next slide muna tayo. I'll show that later, so hindi ko na switch yung order. Pero what can we learn from Genesis 32 is that Jacob was wrestling with God during this time. He was very eager to be blessed by God. And I hope that you will listen to this very carefully because this is very important. Jacob wrestled with God. Jacob was eager to be blessed by God. That's the first thing. He won't let go of God, no, what he called to be God during that time. And he want God during that time to bless him. Okay? Where did it start? Jacob's eagerness started to be blessed, no, when he was younger, diba? He actually deceived his father because he wanted the blessing of his father, no? And if you would study the characteristics of his parents, no, the mother is very controlling, no? the mother of Jacob was actually very controlling, and the father was actually very detached. Isaac's favorite was Esau, no, and so Isaac was detached from Jacob, and so the thinking of Jacob during this time, if I deceive people, if I will deceive people, I will actually be blessed because I deceived my father. I was blessed. If I deceive people, I'll be blessed. That's the thinking pattern. That's what he thought the situation was. No? That's why all throughout his life, he was deceiving people and he was being deceived. No? Niloloko siya, nanloloko siya. No? Kasi he thought that's the way to bless him. And when he wrestled with God, he actually realized during that time that the blessing that I have been looking for all throughout my life, the affirmation, the blessing, the love that I have been looking for all throughout my life, can be found by this person, can be found by this person that I'm wrestling with. That's why when I encounter him, I would not let go of him. I would not let go of him. I want him to bless me. I want him to declare his blessing. But before God speaks blessing to him, no, what was the condition? What's the question? What did God ask him? The question was, what's your name? What is your name? And Jacob, which we know, Jacob means deceiver. Diba? We know that. Jacob actually acknowledged that he is a deceiver. The acknowledgement of his name, my name is Jacob, is actually an indication that I'm opening myself to you. I'm opening my past to you. I'm opening what I have done to you, Lord. This is my name. I'm Jacob. I'm deceiver. I'm weak, acknowledging myself in front of you. That's what Jacob did before God gave his blessings to Jacob. So remember this, church. I want you to remember this, young people. We are worshiping a God who is asking for our name. And what do I mean by that? We are worshiping a God who is not actually ashamed of our past, who is not actually ashamed of who we really are in front of him. But we are worshiping a God who is demanding our authentic self, demanding who we really are. We worship a God who wants us to come to him with all our realities, with all our stories, however dark, however uh, palagay mo pangit yung story mo, we worship a God who wants the true us, the real you. No? Sometimes kasi meron tayong projection na because I feel ashamed of myself, therefore God is ashamed of me too. No. Even if you're ashamed of yourself, even if you're ashamed of your past, of what happened to you in your past, God is not ashamed of that. God actually wants that. God wants you to bring that in his presence. And God gave him what? When he acknowledged his name, he acknowledged his past, God gave him a new identity. I will name you Israel. What does Israel mean? Israel means God fights for you, or God fights for you. God fights. And you see, this time, God is telling Jacob, you no longer have to fight to get the blessing. You no longer have to fight in order to be affirmed, to be loved, but I will be fighting for you. I'm giving you an identity that is not based on how you understand yourself, not based on how you see yourselves or how others see how others see you, but I'm giving you an identity that is based on how I see you. And how I see you, I fight for you. I affirm you. I bless you. I consider you as my own. So how did Jacob prevail? How did Jacob prevail against God this time? It's not through his strength because he was weak, di ba? Pinilayan nga siya. It's not through his strength. But it's when he acknowledged that he needed the presence of God, that he was guilty and that he needs to totally depend on God. You know, that's the irony of Christianity. Christianity is telling us that you don't have to fight actually. You have to surrender. You have to bring yourself to God with all this acknowledgement that, Lord, I cannot find blessing on my own. I cannot find my identity on my own. I need you to define myself. I need you to define me. I need you to describe me. Not the way I see myself, not the way others see me, but the way you see me. This is very good. Just an illustration. If you're a fan of Chronicles of Narnia, uh, the I think it's Prince Caspian, or the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Yung movie na yun, yung segment na yun. They have to, in order to defeat the Dark Island, they have to surrender the seven swords of the lords. No? They have to surrender the seven swords of the lords sa table ni Aslan. So we know, ang depiction ni C.S. Lewis dito is Aslan is Jesus Christ. No? So for them, you no longer have to fight using your own sword. You have to surrender your sword on Aslan's table. You have to put those swords on Aslan's table. Why? Because Aslan will fight for you. Same is true with us. Jesus fights for us. We only have to surrender the battle to him. You have to surrender. Lord, this is not my battle anymore. This is not my fight anymore. This is your fight. This is for you. Okay? So let's go back to the diagram that I prepared for you earlier, the self and the gospel and the self, for us to be able to see how the gospel penetrates. I hope that you'll be able to appreciate this, because this is actually total difference. No? Number one, before we are converted, before God, we encounter God, the image of God in us is distorted, but now it's restored. Before we felt that we are abandoned and we are separated, now we are adopted as his sons and daughters. We are reconciled with God. Before we feel feelings of shame and guilt and fear, now we have acceptance and forgiveness. Before we felt unsafe, there's no one to talk to about my past. There's no one to talk to about my life. But when we encounter Jesus, we felt safe. We feel safe. Just as how Jesus, or the sinners and the tax collectors, the prostitutes felt very safe to eat with Jesus Christ, ganun din tayo. We feel safe in the presence of Christ. And before, the dominant other, or the dysfunctional other, that it could be your parent, your ideology, your personal expectations, na dyan nakabase yung identity mo. Now, you have Christ in you. And you can always internalize Christ in you. Obviously, the reason why I would like to emphasize Christ in you, because we often think that Christ is so far, Christ is there, I cannot feel him, Christ is beside me. It's actually when you are converted, you can actually internalize the Christ in you. The Christ is in you, he is living in you through the presence of the Holy Spirit. And this is very different from what the secular philosophers or what the secular psychologists offer to us. This is the identity rooted and founded in the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is how we should see ourselves in every day of our lives. And so let me just give you some sort of recommendations, some sort of things that we can do, we can practically apply in order to better understand or to better exercise how we should see our identity in the light of this new identity that I just mentioned to you. Number one, appreciate that you are created uniquely. This is an exercise that you can do if right now you're feeling so insecure, you're feeling so bad about yourself. Kuha ka ng ballpen, kumuha ka ng papel, ilista mo kung ano yung mga bagay na binigay sa'yo ng Diyos. Yung mga gifts mo, yung talents mo, yung skills mo. Huwag mo sabihin sa akin na wala. There will always be something na may isusulat ka as God's gifts for you, God's bestowal of His grace to you. And appreciate your little achievements. Appreciate, kahit walang nag-appreciate na ibang tao, bring it to God. Lord, I appreciate these little achievements that you've allowed me to experience and to achieve. And I bring this to you. Number two, do not compare your life's chapter with someone else's chapter. I just saw it from one of the quotations, and I think that this is very helpful. No, maaring yung iba ay nasa chapter 20 na, nasa chapter 1 ka pa lang. Appreciate your own phase. Appreciate your level. Appreciate where you are right now, because God is writing a different story for you. Hindi tayo pare-pareho ng story. At kung nasa chapter 1 ka pa lang, allow God. Be patient. Allow God to bring you into a deeper and more beautiful story that He will write for you. Number 3, accept your limitations and all your weaknesses. No? A lot of people would work on their weaknesses because hindi nila tanggap na dun sila mahina. So they work on it. Sometimes we just have to accept our limitations and our weaknesses and move on. And look kung saan ka magaling. At yun ang i-improve mo. I-improve mo kung saan ka magaling. Wag mo na, don't spend lots of time. I'm not saying that you should not totally do it, but what I'm saying is don't spend a lot of time improving your weakness. Spend more time, more energy improving your strength, improving kung saan ka magaling. You will appreciate your strength more if you will learn to acknowledge your limitations and your weaknesses. Number 4, review your expectations to yourself. No? Ano ba yung mga ina-expect mo sa sarili mo? Baka naman masyadong madami kang expectations sa sarili mo, hindi na realistic. No? What I want you to do is to review them. Bakit ang dami kong dapat ganito ako, dapat ganito ako, dapat ganito ako? Ang dami, no? Minsan hindi na kailangan, pero nandun pa rin. That's why ang taas ng anxiety mo, ang taas ng level of sadness sa'yo, because there are expectations that you have put in yourself, put on your shoulders na hindi naman dapat nandoon. Review them and bring them to the Lord. And lastly, the most important thing that I still exercise and that I think is one of the things that we need as Christians is to remind ourselves of the gospel. I'm not sure if this is originally from Paul David Tripp. I also heard this from Jerry Bridges, that they would say, preach the gospel to yourself. Preach the gospel to yourself. What do I mean by that? You have to remind yourself every day of your life. You have to look at the mirror and then tell yourself na I am created by God uniquely. I have a different purpose. Hindi pareho yung purpose ko sa purpose ng iba. And even if I'm feeling bad about myself right now, I look at the mirror, di ko gusto yung ilong ko, di ko gusto yung mata ko, di ko gusto yung katawan ko, hindi ko gusto yung nakikita ko. I have to remind myself again, every day of my life, that this is the person whom Jesus Christ died for. This is the person who is accepted by God, loved by God, affirmed by God. No? This is a person for whom Christ died. Tignan mo yung sarili mo in that light. Tignan mo yung sarili mo, i-reflect mo yung sarili mo, in myself, I'm a sinner. By myself, I'm unworthy. By myself, I cannot actually make it to be able to be saved. But because Christ is my Savior, because Christ is with me, because Christ died for me, because Christ affirms me, I can face the world. I can share my story. And in the light of the gospel, my story has meaning. My life has meaning. So, what I would like to say, next slide, the more you see yourself in this light and the deeper you understand, number 1, the damages that you've had in your childhood. Let me just off my camera because I'll be getting my charger. The damages that your childhood brought you, or the damages that has been brought to you by people, or even the damages that you have brought to other people. I would like you to understand, or to realize that the more you see yourself in that light, or the more you see yourself immersing yourself in this reality, the more you will be able to understand the effect of the gospel in your life. The more you will be able to understand that, hey, Jesus Christ died for this person. Jesus Christ died for this unworthy person, full of shame, full of guilt.
Ayan. Nagkakaroon lang po ng ilang mga technicalities. Ayan. Kahit na catalyst ay medyo na-stop tayo. Pero ang dami na nating learnings. Alam mo, catalyst, may notebook ako dito sa harap ko at ang dami kong notes. And ang dami kong reflection, ang dami kong naiisip, ang daming daming insights na pwedeng natin na ang daming learnings ngayong hapon na to. Ayan. If you have any questions, you can post it sa sa ating comment section.
Yes.
Ayan.
Ate Faith, nag-share ka nga ng kahit isang line na talagang natandaan mo.
Ayan. Sige, ito yung sobrang dami, pero ito yung pinaka-favorite ko. Sabi, our identity should be based and founded on who the Lord is. Kasi minsan, nakikita natin yung ating sarili on how people interact with you, kung ano yung sinasabi ng tao sa'yo, or ano yung naiisip mo sa sarili mo. Pero ito talaga na our Creator is the only one who can give us the real identity na meron talaga tayo.
Yun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nakaka-bless naman. Sa akin, sa akin yung we shouldn't look down on other emotions. Yan. Dito na-appreciate ko yung ating mga shepherds. And kasi, di ba, parang madaming times na nakikinig lang talaga sila kahit sobrang sila rin, punong-puno na rin sila. Pero nakikinig lang sila at syempre, iniintindi rin nila yung mga nangyayari sa atin. Kaya, salute to all the shepherds out there.
Yes.
Ayan.
Yes, amen.
Ayan, pwede tayo magbasa ng ilang mga comments ng ating catalyst. Ayan, may mga question din na pwede nating i-entertain maya-maya pag dumating na at bumalik na si Kuya Doy. So,
Yes.
Yung mga quoted comments na lang nila, yung iba. Ito
yes,
sabi ni...
pwede ka bang magbanggit?
Ito yung quoted message ni Ate Eunice Milan. Your identity does not depend on what the society accept you or what you accept. It's more than that. Yan. Tama naman yon na we can't live na sa society natin na yung parang bumubuhay ka lang para sa sinasabi ng ibang tao. And you can trust yourself naman and trust the Lord kung ano yung gustong bigay sa iyo ng Lord na identity mo. Kasi it's parang yun yung way para makita mo yung sarili mo kung paano ka mag-stand sa isang situation, sa school, sa bahay. It's your identity. So, hindi ka mababago ng ibang tao. It's either accept ka nila or accept ka nila or hindi ka nila ma-accept. But in your side, if you're good naman, okay naman na yun. Yan.
Sabi niya sana, please, grabe, solid. Salamat sa Lord for His assurance of my identity with crying face.
Yan. And we check
Sobrang onod. Ang dami nating natutunan ngayon talaga. Ultimo yung hindi ma-expect na biglang mare-review ka ng Lord na ikaw mahalaga ka sa akin. Yan, importante ka.
Tapos meron din doon yung parang tinitingnan mo na yung sarili mo na, ba't ganun? Wala na akong sa society. Parang you're so down na. Pero naano ka pa rin pala ng Lord na, hindi, anak kita, ganun. So, that's how to show identity. Yan. Ito naman, quoted message.
Yes.
Ito yung quoted message naman ni Kuya Mike Adina. Yan. It is not with his strength, but it is when he admitted and acknowledged his guilt and totally depended on God. Yan. Tama. So, yon ang lalim. Hindi, joke lang. And so, yung sinabi niya, yung ganda. Yan.
Yes, ang ganda. Tsaka yung mga tips nung dulo, di ba? Yung nag-compare your chapter with someone else. Lalo na ngayon, parang yung iba naman hindi nakakapag-aral ngayon or nag-stop, di ba? Yung mga current situations natin ngayon. So, maganda ang plano ng Lord sa ating lahat.
Yes. Tsaka ngayon kasing ngayong pandemic season, sobrang laki ng atake ng anxiety. 'Di ba? Isipin nyo ilang buwan na tayong nasa bahay, so hindi tayo lumalabas. So parang you're looking forward kung ano yung gusto mong gawin, di ba? So, sobrang hirap mag-adjust, and yung dating sa'yo na, ala, ba't ganun? Tapos lalo na ngayon, magbabalik-aral na ulit sa mga schools, paano ako papasok, paano yung gadgets ko, di ba? So, I'm reading
Totoo.
story sa Facebook, sa balita na paano yung gadget ko, wala akong laptop, wala akong internet. So, kailangan kong kumayod ng gabi, kailangan ko magbuhat, gano'n, parang gano'n yung mga story. Pero, in the bottom story of all, nasa Lord lang. Nasa Lord lang
Oo.
yung ano natin.
Tsaka hindi tayo lalaban ng mag-isa, sabi nga kanina, di ba? Ultimo ang Lord pa ang sasama sa atin at lalaban para sa atin. Even in the midst of trials nga at nahihirapan man tayo ngayon, pero God is with us. Yan.
Yan. So, habang inaantay natin si Kuya Dois,
Magbasa pa din tayo ng mga quotation na nakuha natin from Kuya Doy. Yan. Sabi
ayan.
ni ating Miss Anne Milan, your identity does not depend on what the society accepts or what you accept. It's more than that.
Ayan. Yan.
Ayan.
Yan dahil andyan Kuya Doy.
Hello po.
Hello,
I
Kuya
lost
Doy.
my phone, I lost my my battery. Pero yan, okay na siya. Yeah. Actually, patapos na rin naman ako eh. That's the last. Actually, buti na lang patapos na ako. I'm actually down to my last. And so, I hope that everyone is able to pick up what I'm trying to say. And that the more we actually understand ourselves. Remember that our journey in understanding ourselves is a long journey. Hindi yan matatapos hanggang sa paglaki mo or pag may asawa ka na, you still are knowing yourself. But remember that you have to know yourself in the light of how God describes who you are, in the light of how God actually sees you. And that does not cease, that doesn't end. And the more you deeply understand yourself, the more you will appreciate the grace of God, and the more you see how far Jesus Christ went just to restore your identity. I think that's in my last slide. I put that in my last slide. And sabay nating basahin. The more damaged and broken you realize you are, the more you appreciate how far Jesus went to restore your identity. I hope you've had a good time this afternoon, and I hope that this will not be the first and the last that I'll be fellowshipping with you through learnings and discussions. So God bless. If you have questions, just feel free to ask them. If you have questions in the comment sections, let me know so that I will be able to answer them right away. God bless everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kuya Doy. And may mga question tayo from our catalyst. Sabi dito, how can I be confident in my own identity?
Confidence is very hard to establish within yourself because it takes a lot of exposure. Number one, it takes a lot of exposure with other people, and it also takes lots of support. But remember, it always has to start with you. Confidence is not being able to. It starts when you're not so conscious about what other people will tell you. No? When you start to understand that your value or your worth does not depend on the affirmations of other people that surround you. But actually, your value and your worth depends only on your only one audience. It depends on God, right? And so whenever you come to people, whenever you face other people, you always have to remind yourself that I am here as accepted and loved by God. And the person that I'm talking to right now, the person that I'm dealing with right now, when we stand in the grace of God, we're equal. Remember that. When we stand in the grace of God, if God's grace is a weighing scale, if God's grace is a weighing scale, kapag lahat tayo tumayo doon, lahat tayo pantay-pantay ng bigat sa harap ng Panginoon. And that's the other way to answer that. The other way to answer that is that if you are not confident because there are skills or there are aspects in you that you want to improve, do it right now. Do things, start right now that will help you improve the things that you are not confident about. It may be your speaking skills, maybe how you look, you can improve that. Just remember that whatever it is that you can measure, you can always improve. Right? And now is the time to decide to improve whatever it is that you want to improve. And as I've said, acknowledge your strengths first and your weaknesses. Because when you acknowledge your strengths, you know what to improve. If you understand your strengths and your weaknesses, you know what to deal with. So that's my very short answer for that.
Ayan. Thank you, Kuya Doy. Another question, paano po kung nakikita ko naman yung strength na pinagkaloob sa akin ng Panginoon kaso hindi ko talaga ma-appreciate?
All right. There are lots of things, no? There could be lots of factors that may contribute kung bakit hindi mo na-appreciate strength mo. I don't know. I don't have a simplistic answer to that because that takes that can take a one-on-one understanding or counseling perhaps para mas maintindihan mo yung sarili mo. Maraming factors na pwede nag-contribute but hindi mo na-appreciate yung strengths mo, but hindi mo nakikita yung strength. Possibly kasi you're growing up, nandun yung strengths na yun, pero you're growing up, hindi na-affirm or hindi na-acknowledge yung strength mo. Perhaps lang, hindi ko sabi this is the case, your parents are not appreciative of you, are not affirmative of your strengths. No? Pwede kasi yun, di ba? Kaya feeling mo hindi ka pogi o hindi ka maganda kasi you're growing up, hindi mo naman yun naririnig sa parents mo. No? O kaya feeling mo hindi ka matalino kasi growing up, hindi mo naman naririnig sa parents mo na matalino ka because they themselves are factors. Yung mga parents natin, yung family natin actually are factors in building our identity, in building our confidence, in building our skills, in building our understanding of ourselves. So there could be lots of factors. I would love to know. I would love to, if you want to talk personally, I'll be available. I would love to know what could be the factors that affect you in understanding your strengths. Sorry, I can't hear you. Can hear your face. I think you're muted.
Sorry po. And what can we do with our ugly past that is continually haunting us until today?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What can you do with your past? You have to unravel that. You have to dig into that story because healing comes when you acknowledge the details of that haunting story, of that very dark past. You have to confront them. You have to confront them not with pain, not angrily, but with gentleness. You have to journey with that story. And in order to do that, you have to have someone who will journey with you because you cannot talk it out. Kailangan you have to have someone who will help you go into those stories. I remember one person who told me we're having spiritual companioning. Sabi niya sa akin, the reason why I am able to get deeper into my stories, the reason why I can get deeper into the things that I want to go deeper with is because I know that you are there and that you are there journeying with me. And so it's a journey within two people. We call it a therapeutic relationship. Kasi namin nating therapeutic relationship, a relationship that can actually that can actually help the person heal. Remember what Herville Hendricks said? We are born in relationships, we are wounded in relationships, and we can also be healed with relationships. And you have to have those relationships or that relationship that can help you dig deep into your story. And by digging deeper into that story, the more you see the light of the gospel being shed into the darkness. And so I would suggest if you go through spiritual counseling or spiritual companioning or counseling, if you want to do that.
Thank you. I think this is the last question po ng Catalyst.
Sure.
Paano po nakatutulong ang kahulugan ng pangalan sa sarili?
Ang kahulugan ng pangalan sa sarili. Wow, that's a fascinating question. My real name is Rejoice, okay? My real name is Rejoice, and whenever I would meet new people they would always say, akala ko babae. Akala ko babae, di ko alam na yung Rejoice lalaki. Personally, my name is not really helpful in that sense, no? Kasi they would always think na babae yung mamimit nila. But, I don't know if there's meaning in your name sa pangalan mo. Because ang pangalan ko is actually Rejoice Emmanuel Eljon. Rejoice, magalak tayo, Emmanuel, God is with us. Eljon is a combination of my parents' name. So it's actually an affirmation that my presence is a reminder of God's presence in their life. So I think I appreciate my name in that case. Pero I really struggled growing up. No, I struggled growing up kasi I have to write yung pag nagko-quiz kami yung mga kaklase ko, number 3 na ako, patapos pala ako sa apelido ko. Joyce, Emmanuel, Eljon, San Agustin, Morelos. Haba, dami mo susunod. But going back to the question, how can your name actually affect you? The effect is actually very subjective. Kasi yung pangalan mo, pwedeng may meaning, pwedeng may wala. Pero it's good to know the stories behind your name. Why did your parents name you that name? No? And those stories can actually build your character. Those stories can give you a sense of, ito pala yung dahilan why my parents gave me this name, because this was a situation, this was actually the story behind it. And when you know those stories, you begin to appreciate how God, it's not accidental. Remember that your name will never be accidental. There will always be part of your name or part of the story ng pangalan mo na maaaring makaresonate ka sa mga experiences mo sa buhay mo. And then whenever whenever people call me Rejoice, people would actually joke. Nung elementary ako, they will joke, Rejoice shampoo, ganyan. But when I grew up, no, and people actually joke na rejoice in the Lord always, it actually makes me rejoice. It gives a smile on my face, and it also gives smile on the faces of people. Know the story behind your name, because this can actually build your character and your personality. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Kuya Doy, thank you for this very informative tsaka enlightening na discussion, a webinar from you.
You're welcome.
We are so much blessed in having you here in YGIG. Kuya Doy, pwede mo bang ipag-pray ang ating mga catalysts?
Sure, sige. I'll pray for you. Let's come before the Lord in prayer. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this afternoon. We know that this webinar is not an accident for those people who have just heard this. We thank you, Lord God, because we know that even amidst the pandemic, wherever we are, Lord God, whatever the situation there may be, when we know ourselves, if we know ourselves the way you see us, we will always have a better grasp of reality, and we can always move forward in life. I pray for these young people, under Catalyst, Lord. I pray for not just for the young people who are listening here right now, but for the young people whom you have called to be yours. I just pray, Lord God, that they will find and they will seek their identity in you. Help them, Lord God, for your gospel to shed light to the darkest stories that they have when they were younger, even up to right now, Lord God. I just pray that they will be able to see how far you have come, how far Jesus Christ has come, in order to redeem them, restore them, and in order for you to whisper to them that you love them and that you affirm them, not by themselves, by what Christ has done on the cross of Calvary. I pray, Lord God, that you will help us to see ourselves the way you see us. And I pray that you will always remind us every day of our lives, God, that we are yours and that we are your people. And that's where we root and base and find our identity. Give you thanks, God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yan. Thank you so much, Kuya Rejoice Morelos. And
You're
sa ating
welcome.
mga catalysts na
Thank you po.
nag-participate sa ating question and answer portion, thank you so much.
Thank you po.
Ayan, catalyst.
Ayan.
Yan.
Grabe, ang dami nating
Salamat at na-bless na naman tayong lahat ngayon.
Dami natin natutunan.
Totoo. At ngayon, syempre, kailangan na natin
For some announcements, ayan,
yes, for some announcements.
patuloy kayong mag-abang ng ating YGIG every Fridays. And also, our daylight every day posted in our page, Catalyst. Ayan, continue to inspire other people through your testimony at pwede kayong mag-message doon. Also, our Hope of Glory page sa ating mga Sunday services. Ano pa ba, Ate Ambi?
Yes, ang Tuesday prayer intercession natin. And ang Thursday healing service. Yan. Healing midweek service every Thursday, 7 p.m.
Also, you can follow our page in YouTube or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Twitter account, Catalyst Gig, and also we also have IG, Instagram, Catalyst Gig.
Yes.
Yes.
Another meaningful Friday na naman, kapatid. Ang sarap dahil na-bless na naman tayong lahat ngayon. Kaya kita-kits muli tayo next Friday sa ating YGIG!
YG!
Okay,
Yeah,
once
baba.
I am Jolly V.
And I am Chavi.
And I am Abby. Thank you so much, Catalyst. God bless.
Next
And
Friday.
God bless.
see you again next Friday. Goodbye. Have a
Bye.
Bye.